I'm just going to apologise. Okay, bye.
So what was all that about?
Right. Hi, everybody. Just want to apologise. I completely forgot to switch the microphones off while we were waiting to come in. So, as you can see, we've never done this before. So, you probably heard a few people going, "Is the microphone on? Oh no, the microphone's on." We did panic a bit. So, apologise for that, but hey ho. It's live. It's live. We've never done this before. So, we would just like to say, Croeso Poi.
And welcome.
Croeso Pau.
And welcome to Brenig Watch Live.
We are here at the Osprey Lookout at Llyn Brenig on the Denbigh Moor in North Wales. There's a lovely map of the gorgeous Denbigh Moors. I'm Sarah, the project officer for the Brenig Osprey Project, and
I'm Andy, lead volunteer at the Brenig Osprey Project.
And the technical person needs some help.
And a technical person needs some help. So we'll just take a minute out there and I'll just talk, or just talk amongst yourselves if you'd like to. I think the technical person has had their help. Okay, so yeah, as I say, I'm Andy, lead volunteer at the Brenig Osprey Project. Hopefully this evening we've got something to interest everyone.
And we hope that that's all the glitches that we're going to have for the evening now.
The good stuff, though, is you'll meet some of our fabulous volunteers sharing their favourite moments from all sorts of different seasons. You'll hear something about the mythology surrounding these beautiful birds. And of course, we'll recount some of the highlights of this and earlier breeding seasons. Sarah.
The Brenig Osprey Project is a partnership project between Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water and the North Wales Wildlife Trust. And I've forgotten what to say next.
Whatever. Shall I tell something about the name Osprey?
Why don't you tell us about the name Osprey, Andy?
I could certainly do that, Sarah, because the name Osprey has had as long an evolution as the osprey has, because the earliest fossils of the osprey were found 50 million years ago. The name isn't that old. The name actually, well, this is how it all started. Back in the 1st century AD, with Pliny the Elder, we had the naturalist, and he was writing about a bird called an ossifraga. Of course, that means bone breaker, and the osprey was never a bone breaker. But that name sort of stuck around for quite a long time, right up until the Middle Ages, in fact, when we got other writers who began to write about the osprey because, well, it's always been a very significant bird. They began to call it the sea eagle. They were wrong as well because, well, the osprey isn't a sea eagle. Then the French got a look in there with their name for a bird of prey, which was avis pride. So now, if we tag on os, which means bone, to avis pride, we're starting to get almost to the word osprey. In 1460, a Middle Ages writer by the name of Albus Magnus, who I believe gave his name to Albus Dumbledore of J.K. Rowling fame, said that the osprey had a webbed foot on one side and talons on the other side. And he also said that when an osprey was fishing, when the fish saw the osprey flying over, they would surrender themselves by turning belly up and allowing themselves to be caught. Just a short while later, Shakespeare wrote about the osprey in his play Coriolanus, and he wrote, "He'll be to Rome like the osprey is to the fish." And now we've got the name osprey, and I've not even mentioned the scientific name, which is Pandion haliatus. I always want to say Pandion halitosis, but you'd have halitosis as well if you were eating fish all day and you didn't clean your teeth. That was given to the bird by a French naturalist called Jules Savigny in 1806. Unfortunately, Jules Savigny was also wrong, because haliatus actually means sea eagle as well. Pandion was a mythological Greek king of Athens, and we'll not talk about him. So let's just call the osprey by its name, the osprey. Sarah.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for telling us about the name osprey. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to introduce Andy and Sophia to tell us about Llyn Brenig and the history of our project. I'd just like to say first, in the last part of the programme, we're going to have a question and answer session. So if there's any questions that you want to ask, not about the technical and how to switch off a microphone, but any questions about ospreys or the project, please put them in the chat. And in the last section of the programme, we'll go through as many of those as we can. So we'd like to bring on Sophia and Andy, please.
Sophia and Andy. So Andy, I believe that you're going to go first, and you're going to tell us about this wonderful location and where we are.
Thanks very much, Andy. Yeah, I'd like to start by way of introduction, just spend a few minutes talking about Llyn Brenig and its history. It may well be that there are people on here tonight who've never actually been to Llyn Brenig. So Llyn Brenig is a reservoir located on the Denbigh Moors in North Wales, and the artificial lake was created by building an embankment dam across the Llyn Brenig Valley. Construction work took approximately 3 years to complete and was finished in 1976. It lies around approximately 1,200 feet above sea level on the border between the counties of Conwy and Denbighshire. Its primary purpose is to manage the flow into the River Dee as part of the River Dee regulation system in conjunction with Llyn Tegid and Llyn Celyn. The regulation of the river is vital to protect the water supply for North West England and North East Wales, particularly Liverpool and its surrounding area. With a surface area of 920 acres, that's around 3.7 square kilometres, it's the fourth largest lake in Wales, behind Bala Lake or Llyn Tegid, Llyn Transfynydd and Lake Vyrnwy. The dam, 45 metres high at its highest point, holds back approximately 60 million cubic metres of water when full, and which at its deepest is around 40 metres. Perimeter of about 9 miles, the lake is approximately 2.5 miles long and approximately 1.5 miles wide. So as we say, construction was finished in 1976. It was actually 1979 before the reservoir was filled. Water supply of the catchment into Llyn Brenig is significantly over reservoir. So I'm going to be a bit technical now, but then we'll put it into layman's terms afterwards. This means the catchment area of Llyn Brenig does not have the capacity to refill the reservoir within one annual hydrological cycle. Or, to put it more plainly, it's not enough rain in 1 year, even in Wales, to fill the lake. So it can take several years for the reservoir to refill after its level's been drawn down. And water's only taken from Llyn Brenig during drought conditions when Llyn Celyn and Bala are no longer predicted to be capable of maintaining the flow into the River Dee. So that's a little bit about Brenig and why it's here. So let's now go on to talk about a few facts about ospreys and the Osprey Project here. So 2013, Llyn Brenig Management and the Rangers built the first nests using wood recovered from the visitor centre following a redevelopment the previous winter. They were used for 3 basic structures. They were mounted on telegraph poles around the site they were sufficiently quiet and yet accessible for maintenance. A year later, in 2014, Welsh Water undertook a 4-metre drain down of the reservoir, and the opportunity was taken at this point to put up one nesting platform on Duck Island, which at that point had temporarily reconnected to the mainland, and the other on the foreshore, which we now call the Osprey Peninsula, knowing that both would be re-surrounded by water once the reservoir had been filled. 2015 showed positive signs, and a young male osprey was seen in the area throughout the summer. Osprey sightings continued over the following years, and in 2017, a pair of birds stayed in the area for the whole of the nesting season, showing a strong preference for the peninsula platform that was now back in the water. So in 2018, the team decided to focus all their preparation effort on the nest that had been shown so much interest in 2017. Trail cams were mounted, extra perches were added both on the nest and in the nearby woodland. Days after it was prepared, a female osprey arrived. Yep, it was Blue 24. And a few days afterwards, after she'd done a few laps of North Wales, she settled back onto the nest along with her new partner, HR7. And by late April 2018, it became clear that a serious nesting attempt was underway. So let me give you a little more information about Blue 24 and HR7. The female, Blue 24, was a bird that fledged from Rutland Water and hatched in 2013. The male, HR7, hatched in 2014 and exchanged his home in the Lake of Monteith area of Scotland for the lakes and hills of Wales. And sadly, not a great deal is known about him before his arrival here. Blue 24, however, has some history in Wales before coming to us. She was quite old to have her first successful nest at the age of 8. She had attempted to nest elsewhere in previous years, sadly all ending in failure. However, a new nesting location here was a much better choice, being close to an abundant food source, with minimal energy expenditure required to hunt, and protected from ground predators like pine martins and away from other osprey nests. So, HR7 and Blue 24 raised a single chick in 3 consecutive years at Llyn Brenig. In 2018, a female chick ringed Z9. 2019, a male chick named Rolly, KA5, who has now returned and has a nest in the Glaslyn Valley. At 6 years old, he's been rather a late starter, rather like his mother. And in 2020, we had a female chick ringed KC5. Now, sadly, HR7 and Blue 24 didn't return in 2021. And Sophia and Andy will go on to talk about what's happened here since then. However, before I hand over to them, I just want to say a few words about ospreys in Wales now. Surprisingly, no official records exist of ospreys breeding in Wales until 2004, although ospreys had been nesting and slowly growing in numbers in the UK since the 1950s. Ospreys are now successfully established in Wales and a number of sites open to the public. However, there are a number of other sites that are not open for the protection of the birds and the owners of the sites who are lucky enough to have a nest upon them. At this point, I must just thank Gary Jones from Gary Jones Wildlife Photography for allowing us to use so many of his stunning photographs for this event tonight. Gary is a great supporter of the project and a huge fan of ospreys in general, and we thank him very much for his help and expertise. So, Sophia, Andy, back to you.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Andy. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Hi, Sophia.
Hi.
It's a beautiful evening. Sometimes it gets confusing.
It does a little.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Luckily, we don't look alike.
No.
Well, lucky for you that we don't look alike, but there we go. Anyway, Sophia, how would you describe your role within the Brenig Osprey team?
Oh gosh, well, it's a wide and varied role, Andy. From manning the lookout and engaging with all our visitors and enthusing about our ospreys and teaching them about our ospreys, some people have not seen before. So it's lovely when you get people in and they see ospreys for the first time. Yeah. So on top of that as well, we have the photography hide. I've just realised I've still got my binoculars on my shoulder, so I'll be looking at an intruder.
We usually have to have them surgically removed.
So we have the photography hide and we do bird surveys and we do trail cams to find out what fantastic wildlife we have here around Brenig. I was introduced myself to the project in 2019, and I'm slightly obsessed now, so as many people will probably know. And yes, I love it.
We're all in love with our ospreys, aren't we?
Absolutely.
There was a bit of a tragedy in 2021. Could you tell us what happened that year?
Well, we had our new pair who naturally arrived, LM6 and LJ2, both Scottish birds. They hatched in 2018, so it would have been their first breeding season. Sadly, that year in 2021, their first year here, the pole was cut down. But just from that, we had from a negative situation, we had a positive, because lots of people got engaged with the project, got lots of support, and from then on, and actually the birds still stayed in the area for that season and then migrated as usual, and they did, fortunately, return in 2022.
So that's a real success story, isn't it?
Absolutely.
As you say, from a negative, a massive positive. And it got people engaged with the project as well, didn't it?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. And how are the ospreys protected now?
So there's quite a big infrastructure in now to protect the ospreys. We have exclusion zones, we have cameras, we also have a huge team of volunteers who do our online watches, and we thank them because they keep an eye on everything, including me. I watch as well, so it's like, even though when I'm not here, I'm watching it online as well. But yeah, so that's how we now protect the birds and hopefully keep them safe.
Fabulous. And do we have any involvement from the local police?
Rural crime team, they are on hand as and when we need them, yes.
Okay. So how successful has the breeding been since you've been with the project?
So as Andy was saying, in with HR Assembly 24, we had Rolly who arrived. So in all, we've got 7 chicks now, juveniles, that have come and fledged successfully from Brenig. And I'm just trying to think now how many we've had returns. There must be 4, 5. Rolly, and then 3 others. Yeah. So yeah.
That's fabulous. We're going to have a really complicated family tree eventually, aren't we?
Oh, it's going to be
Looking
fabulous.
for it's going to be wonderful, isn't it? It really has been
And
so
hopefully it'll get
successful.
bigger as well.
Brilliant. Okay. Do we know where any of the previous youngsters have been sighted?
So, well, fortunately, yeah, KA9 from 2022, he actually arrived here and quite handily sat on the PTZ perch for a split second until LJ2, his dad, removed him, chased him away. But he was a returner last year. We know that his sister, X6, who is actually a male, he has been spotted and is now breeding in Wales. So that's great to know. Also, from 2023, 75, Dillis. Just trying to remember all these names and numbers.
You're doing very well.
You're doing great.
Yes, and she actually, that's quite interesting because she was spotted in Madrid on her migration over to the UK, and then 3 days later she was spotted at Llyn. So it's great to have watchers all over the place.
I thought you were going to say she was spotted in Madrid on a sunbed, but there we go. That's absolutely
so it's been
fabulous.
brilliant. Yeah, so we're doing really well. So
Brilliant.
That's great. And then of course we're on to Dave and Alistair for the 24 and 25 so far.
We are indeed,
Yeah.
and shall we bring Dave and Alistair on at this very point in time? Dave and Alistair, as they say, please come on down. Thanks very much, Sophia.
Thank you.
I think probably if you're watching at home, give them a little round of applause. This is our very first time online, so you've got to kind of just give us a little bit of leeway for any mistakes that we might make. So, Dave and Andy, another 2 of our wonderful lead volunteers who are absolutely brilliant, brimming with knowledge and information, of which they're going to impart to us now some of the action from previous seasons and this season as well. Who's going to start? I can't remember.
I think,
So-
yeah, that's go on.
So, Alistair, why don't you tell us about the start of the 2024 season?
2024 started looking quite like usual in that LJ2 arrived on schedule at the end of March and started his nest preparation and things all looked a bit normal. What then happened was the female that arrived was 372 rather than LM6, who was the established female. 372 was a female we had seen in 2023. She, even by that stage, had an interesting history. She had been part of the Poole Harbour relocation project in 2021. And when she returned to the 2-year-old in 2023, sensible girl that she is, she came to live in North Wales rather than in the south of England. And I was actually in our photography hide with some of the team from Poole when we saw her as a 2-year-old on one of the tree stumps near the photography hide. So we'd seen 372 in 23, and in 24 LM6 didn't return from migration, and 372 was kind of approaching LJ2 and going, "What about it?" And he was going, "No, I'm waiting for the missus." Well, that went on for a week, and then he began to think, "Do you know what? Maybe she's not coming back, and maybe I should buy this nice, get this nice girl a fish." And so he went and got 372 a fish, and life began to take a new turn with a new female on the nest. They got together, and we had a fairly conventional, if slightly later than usual, start to a laying program because it had taken them a couple of weeks to get their act together. But stuff started happening and eggs started being laid. She was an interesting female in that once she started incubating, she decided to do some of the fishing, left him to sit on eggs, and she would go and fish and go, "You tease on that tree stump over there." But that was all fine. And then
The first egg.
right, there's the first egg. That was the first egg she'd ever laid, and she kind of was slightly confused by the process, as many of the females are. And that egg didn't get incubated on the first night. And there's delayed incubation, and there's leaving an egg on a nest at freezing point overnight possibly wasn't such a good idea, and we'd end up in us only having 2 eggs that hatched that year. But then,
Dave, do you want to tell us what happened on the 9th of May?
On the 9th of May, we had the battle for the nest, where another big female, 432, killed the bird, and her partner at that point, 416, tried to take the nest over from our pair. So we were all watching, and WhatsApp, our WhatsApp group went absolutely wild with, "You've got to start looking at this. Is it going to be a disaster?" And as things progressed for 4.5 hours of various attempts by 432 to dislodge 372 from the nest, and 416 being chased off by our male LJ2, it went round and round, and every so often we thought it had calmed down, but then it started up again.
It was ferocious.
It was absolutely
It was a ferocious attack.
And they were very well balanced. The two females are more or less the same size, and we really didn't know what was going to happen. And it really went on more or less until dusk. It only quietened down as the light faded.
He carried his fish all the way through though.
He did, absolutely. And that has proved to be one of the things that's a trait of LJ2. He doesn't like to leave his fish behind. He will carry it around and brandish it. Whether that has any effect on who he's chasing, I'm not quite sure.
Probably the smell. So this attack, this trying to take over the nest, went on and on.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you can see there, LJ2 chasing off 416 and coming round again. So we were at this point keeping an eye on those eggs down in the bottom of the nest, that they would survive. But in the end, as I say, the battle took 4.5 hours, and luckily our female managed to retain the nest.
She's a feisty, valiant bird, isn't she?
She absolutely is.
Young Scottish lady. Aye.
So we're just going to go now on to thanks, Dave. That was
Brilliant.
brilliant, and it was
I
really
thought you should have
exciting.
some epic music
I know.
playing there in the background, you know, kind of Lord of the Rings or something.
We should
It
have
really
brought
was.
your didgeridoo.
I should have brought my ditch. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe not.
So that year we had a couple of intruders.
Yeah.
So Alistair, do you want to tell us about
Right.
those?
So we were here one Friday afternoon, and it was quite relaxing. And
No,
suddenly-
working really hard.
Oh, no, it was Friday afternoon. It was all right. We thought nothing exciting was going to happen, and suddenly 041 came and kindly dangled his legs in front of the camera. 041 was a 2-year-old male from the National Trust of Scotland's Threave site, and it was the first time he'd been seen back in the UK from migration, and because of the database that UK Osprey Information run, we were able to get in touch with the project manager at Threave and say, your lad's back, he's here in Wales, and he, I believe, has now established a nest up in Scotland,
Fantastic.
which was great news. And that was one Friday. The next day, and it will come in a minute, I got up on the Saturday morning and saw that on the feed, and that's KA9, our 2022 lad, who arrived back on our perch in front of our camera and probably got chased by his dad. And he's going, Dad, do you want to bring a fish? No, you're an intruding osprey. You can go.
And at that point, we'd only ever had Rolly back before,
Yes.
hadn't we? So this was such
They-
exciting, so exciting to have another
yeah.
Brenig Osprey.
as I said, somebody, if I could still turn cartwheels, I would have done. But the season went on. We produced two chicks, 8B9 Bethan, who is a lady who takes after her mother.
Feisty.
She's a big bird,
Yeah.
and she's feisty. And having looked at the history, Tim McCrill said to us, she's one that'll make it back to 2-year-old. But she fledged, and despite this rather inelegant landing that comes up in the moment, proved to be very adept. In a couple of days after that, Emrys 8B8, he eventually floated here, but I don't think he's the bravest soldier on God's earth, Emrys, and his early flight was really just to the next tree. Doesn't want to take it too big a step, and I can relate to that. So last season came to an end. 372 did something conventional for once and left as the first of the birds to leave on migration, and then the youngsters left, and then LJ2 tidied up the shop. We thought he'd gone. They arrived back the next day just to make sure that none of the kids had come back, and he disappeared back to. Well, we don't know exactly where he goes. He was seen as a juvenile at the Carton Bird Observatory in Gambia. We don't know if he's been back there since, but that's the general direction he goes in. And isn't he a good-looking lad? He was sitting there surveying his territory before he went off.
And when do you think, when will be possibly that we see Emrys and Bethan again?
Emrys and Bethan, I would guess the second half of May next year. Second half of May 2026.
Pound.
Yeah, on. It's a deal. At least one of them.
At least one of them.
At least one of them, and not necessarily here, because Bethan is a feisty and challenging girl. She could finish up anywhere. Because remember, her mum thinks she fled from Poole Harbour and she came to North Wales.
Well, thanks so much
Fabulous.
for. Do you want to talk about fish?
Do you want me to talk about
Shall we
fish?
talk
Talk
about
something
fish?
about fish.
Oh,
Tell us something about fish.
I'm known around here as the fish man. I'm not sure it's.
It's not because of the way you smell, Alistair.
Bad.
It's because you know everything there is to know about.
So we try and keep track of the various species of fish that the ospreys bring in, and for this, like many other things, we're indebted to the online watchers who are recording fish 24/7 when many of us are not here. You would think that an osprey nest on a lake that is stocked by a fishery with about 1,000 trout a week. I mean, why would you need to fish for anything else? But the ospreys do. Yes, we see a fair amount of rainbow and brown trout. That's probably the majority of the fish. We see quite a lot of perch. We tend to see perch more likely to be caught when the weather's nasty. So if it's raining or wet, you will quite often catch perch rather than the trout. But he travels further afield. We know because of one of the other volunteers as a friend who saw an osprey taking a grayling out of the Dee at Barla, which is about 9 miles away. And about 40 minutes after that event, LJ2 arrived back here with a grayling. We know he's going somewhere to catch mullet.
Yeah.
And we actually, the statistics show that he was likely to catch more mullet in July and August last year. That's where the majority of the mullet arrived. And I said that this morning to somebody. And about 3 o'clock this afternoon, he clearly heard me because we saw the first mullet for a couple of months this afternoon. We don't know where he goes to catch them. We'd love to. It's probably up one of the estuaries that goes up to the North Wales coast, but we don't know where that is. If anyone ever sees an osprey catching a mullet on the North Wales coast, please can they let us know?
Let us know.
So yeah, we keep a track. The fishermen really haven't got that much to worry about. In an average season, the ospreys will catch between 450 and 500 fish. Half of them are probably trout. So that will be about 200 of the 40,000 trout the fishery put in the lake every year. So actually the ospreys aren't taking a sufficient, a worrying number of trout. And the fish farm
are allowed to take 6 a day.
Yeah. Yeah, my only slight concern is I'm not sure anyone's told LJ2 he's supposed to throw any blue trout he catches back. I'm not sure he's read that page of the book.
Thanks, Alistair. That's fantastic. Thanks a lot for telling us about that.
Your memory is amazing, Alistair. To remember all those names and all those numbers is just absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure that
It's something I've been afflicted with all my life, sadly.
Yes, you certainly have a memory for statistics.
Thank you so much for telling us about those. Now we're going to go on to.
Am I going to do some mythology?
Well, don't you want to know 2025?
Oh, let's hear 2025 first. Shall we? 2025.
We're just going to do a quick recap on 2025 because the start of the season was obviously dramatic, very dramatic. Time's marching on, I think, so we'll just crack on through this. So we expected 372 to arrive, and she did. She arrived quite early, but then this gentleman arrived. Not our resident male. This is 416. We were expecting LJ2 to arrive, and as time went on, so this is the 30th of March, as you can see, this pair was starting to bond. LJ2 still had not been seen. He still hadn't returned from migration. As you can see, they're getting very amorous, and it's not after 9 o'clock. So apologies for that. But as time's going on, so we're now on the 6th of April, and these two were bonded by then, and they were protecting the nest together from intruders. So we've got a bonded pair here. If LJ2 was due to come back, we were hoping he would, and he did. 10th of April, he arrived. He arrived on the nest, but her behaviour was really interesting because she treated him like an intruder. Not like, oh, you were my fella from last year, come in. She's like, no, I've already got a male. You shouldn't be on my nest. And she treated him like an intruder. LJ2 arrives, spots a fish, hungry for his migration, decided, I'm having that. And he takes it. And he flies off. So he must have been really hungry from his migration. Can you just pause that a second? We think that during the 2 weeks that 372 arrived and then LJ2 arrived, we think and we know there were storms in Spain and Portugal. And we think, and that delayed the migration. It delayed our migrating birds, but other migrating birds as well. So swifts and swallows. That migration stopped and then started again once those storms had passed. So there was a delay. So when LJ2 came back, he was tired. He wasn't in great condition to challenge for the nest. We expected him to challenge for the nest straight away. You can play now. And he didn't. He didn't. He visited on the 11th, so this is the day after. Again, 372 did not like him being on the nest. And you can see her mantling and hitting him with her wings and trying to get him off the nest. But he's like, this is my nest. I don't understand. I'm confused. Until then 416, obviously, must have been around somewhere. 372 is not happy. She wanted him off the nest. She's not her mate for this at this time. He went away for a few days, fed on his fish, got stronger, and challenged for the nest on the 15th. Knocking her off the nest, dive bombing her, and then actually dragging her off the nest. It was quite dramatic, wasn't it? It was really dramatic. Feathers flying and all sorts. He could have really damaged her. And that night, on the 15th, she laid her first egg for 416. 416's first egg. She's looking a bit wet there, isn't she? Bless her. Bless her cotton socks. So, 15th of April, she laid the first egg. And then the 18th of April came. And this was the dramatic day that LJ2 made a proper challenge for the nest. Dive bombing 372. Must have got rid of 416 at this point because we didn't see 416 around at all. He'd gone. Second attack on the nest at 11:25. 372's got an egg now, so she's in defensive mode. She's in proper defensive mode, defending this egg, and he drags her off the nest. He has to prove that he's dominant male at this nest. He has to prove to 372 that he's dominant male, and he drags her off the nest. So this is it again in slow motion. Just look at that face.
This really is an avian soap opera.
Yeah.
We've named it, haven't we? Nest Enders.
So he'd driven 372 from the nest, and there's an egg in there that's not his. We were all at this point saying, he's back, but is he going to stay? Because on the 15th, he didn't stay. He left. But he did stay. Eventually letting 372 back. And on the 18th, she laid another egg of 416s. And we were wondering what was going to happen because we expected him to kick those eggs out of the nest. And what did he do? It did take a couple of days because 372 had to get out of defensive mode. Her male hadn't been back for a few days, so she had to realise that LJ2 was the dominant male. So she left the nest and he kicked the eggs out. You'll just see one pop out here and there's one there that he'd previously kicked out as he was digging. He actually damaged that egg, didn't he?
Yeah.
He damaged that egg, and she ate the insides of it to get the protein back. This is her. They're her reserves that we used to make those eggs. So she's taking those back. She knows that she's going to have to, maybe, probably, hopefully, our fingers were crossed, lay eggs to LJ2. So on the 21st of April, she laid the last of 416's eggs. And again, the day after, LJ2, can you see that there? Kicks the egg, literally kicks the egg out of the nest. So 26th of April came and she laid her first egg of LJ2, we think. Everything all right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Laid the first egg of LJ2, we think, because there could be a crossover point where sperm lasts. Sperm lasts,
Yeah.
but dominant sperm can get to the egg first. So yeah,
Actually, it is, it's LJ2s.
it's LJ2s. Yeah, we say it's LJ2s. And then on the 30th, she laid the second egg of LJ2s. And then it was at that point we all gave a sigh of relief and went, ah, the drama's over at that point, touch wood. And we had hatching chicks. Trish, if you just want to pause that now, because if you look on the other screen, I don't know if you can see that, we've gone from tiny chicks on the 5th of June to enormous chicks today, both fit and healthy. We've still got a big chick and a little chick. Bob too, we were a bit concerned about him at the start because he was very small, and but now it's growing soundly, no problems with that. So that was 2025.
Wow.
So far.
So far.
So far.
So
good.
far.
Who knows what tomorrow will bring?
Yeah, there was enough drama at the start of the season. We
Yeah.
don't really want any more drama.
There will be more drama.
There'll be more
There
drama. There
really
always
will.
is
We
with
know
us,
there
really.
But with ringing and fledging to come in the next 4 weeks,
Absolutely.
we've got. It's not going to be quiet.
So we're going to crack on because we've got
Yeah.
the Osprey mythology to come now. So thank you very much for those. Can I take your
Fabulous,
microphone?
guys.
You
Thanks so
Thanks
much.
so much. Andy's going to give us some information about
About
mythology. for 5
mythology. I'm
minutes.
watching the time.
Yeah.
And
5
as
minutes.
always, time is running on quickly.
Yeah. So we'll do mythology and then we'll do
And
question
we'll
and
do
answers.
questions and answers. Yeah. Okay. So, well, the mythology. We're getting signs from the director here. Okay.
Right. Sounds like we
Everything's
haven't got
fine.
any questions. So either the chat's not working. The chat's working. Okay.
Or we're
so
just saying too much, and
We're
we're
saying
not.
too
Yeah,
much.
we're not leaving people questions.
that's fine.
But that's okay. That's okay. If you have got questions, please type them in the chat and we will answer them if we can. But I think I'm going to do something about mythology, which I really enjoyed researching. And everything that we've been saying highlights what has happened or what's happened in the mythology of the birds over many cultures worldwide, because they've been revered by people going back millennia. They've been have a symbolic meaning for many cultures, representing strength, bravery, courage, perseverance, duty, and fidelity. And we've heard all of that in the stories today, haven't we? So it's so obvious why these birds have been so iconic to so many people throughout history. And I could go through all sorts of different mythologies: Chinese, Bolivian, the mythology of Senegal, Native American, Norse, Celtic, and ancient Greece have all had something to say about our wonderful ospreys.
You're not going to tell us all about all of them.
I'm not going to tell you all about all of them. Well, actually, I was, Sarah. Of course I was. This is my bit now. My favourite story, I think, is the one from ancient Greece, and it's ancient Greek mythology. And I'm sure that a lot of people out there, because we're talking to a very well-informed audience here, will have heard of Icarus's fated flight into the sun. You will remember that Icarus's father, Daedalus, who was an inventor, and Icarus were locked in a tower by the wicked King Midas of Crete. Daedalus had invented the labyrinth for the Minotaur, but I'll not go into that because it's got absolutely nothing to do with this story. But King Midas didn't want them to leave the island of Crete, and so he locked them in a tower. And of course, neither of them liked being up in the tower because they weren't free to leave. And so Daedalus had an idea. And what he decided to do was collect the feathers from seabirds and glue them all together with beeswax and fashion them into 4 wings, 2 for himself and 2 for his son Icarus. And when he'd finished this mammoth task, he fitted the wings to his son and he said, "Son, don't fly too close to the sun, or it'll melt the beeswax, the feathers will fall apart, and you'll plummet down into the ocean." Well, usual thing, sons don't listen to fathers. And so on their first flight, Icarus flew further and further towards the sun. And of course, the sun god Apollo looked down. He was kind of frightened. He knew what was going to happen. He knew that beeswax was starting to melt, and sure enough it was. The feathers fell off, and Icarus plummeted down into the ocean, and he'd not bothered to learn how to swim. Now there's a salutary point, children. Always learn how to swim, because Icarus drowned. And Apollo looked down and felt sorry for the young lad. He thought, it's not really his fault. It's kind of my fault. I'm feeling a bit guilty here. And he reached down into the ocean with his great god's hand. He picked the lifeless body of Icarus out of the sea and turned him, would you believe, into an osprey. And so indeed, ever since, the osprey has been known as the bird of Apollo, the god of the sun. And so that's just one of the many, many stories. But another one I'd like to tell you about, because the osprey also appears in Celtic mythology and is a bird sacred to Rhiannon, who was the Celtic horse goddess. And apparently she transforms herself into an osprey when she wants to visit Noon, or the Celtic otherworld. I'm just going to tell you about Freya, who is the Norse goddess of love. And apparently Freya had 2 ospreys who were sort of trained. Now we know that ospreys are very difficult to train and they're not often used in falconry. But Freya, the goddess of love, a beautiful lady, 2 ospreys were absolutely in love with her. And she had them trained to come back and report back on fishing conditions in the ocean, which is pretty good. If you've got ospreys, they can tell you where the best fishing grounds are. And it was almost like an early version of the shipping forecast. And many, many other stories. Native American tribes have them as totem animals. But there's one final one that I'm going to tell you about, and that is the Chinese folk poem, Guan Guan Juju. And that particular poem actually heralds the osprey as being a metaphor for fidelity and marital harmony. And as you can see from many of the stories, we've had a lot of marital harmony, but plenty of fidelity most of the time. And so the osprey appears in many mythologies from cultures around the world, and it's all very, very interesting. So, Sarah,
Yes.
Back to you. What's next?
Next, we were going to do a question and answer session. So
We were.
So we've got a question, I think.
Oh, have we got a question?
There's a question about why sometimes there's ring numbers are used and other times there's names used, and it's more easy for people to learn about the ospreys and follow them if the names are used, or if both are used together so people can get used to them. So it might be quite interesting to know why sometimes we only use the ring numbers.
So ring numbers, it's tradition at osprey nests that where an osprey is born, that nest names the chicks. If those chicks are not named at that point, then they're never named throughout their life. So it's just out of respect for the nests, really, where they're from, that if they're not named, then we don't name them. But our own chicks,
They've got Welsh names, haven't
yeah,
they?
our own chicks are named. Trish, camera has moved. Just needs putting on preset. That's it. So names, we do name our chicks.
We put it out to schools,
We
don't
put it
we?
out to schools. We put it out sometimes on Facebook polls, but our names are from
From Welsh mythology,
Welsh mythology.
and Welsh history. From the great Welsh mythological cycle called the Mabinogion. And we have Blodwen, whose name comes from Blodaiwen. Blodwen means white goddess of flowers. I'm sure that we'll have lots of people emailing in to correct my my dreadful pronunciation, Blodaiwen. And of course, we've also had Dwynwen, who was the Welsh patron saint of lovers, the equivalent of our St. Valentine. And so we've had lots and lots of other names, Owain from perhaps Owain Glyndŵr, and I think it's rather fun to name them.
It is, and it's nice to get children involved at community schools. Schools and communities in the local community involved. And they do come to visit us. The schools come to visit us. We've had quite a few visits from schools this year, which is great because it means that we can get those children and tell them about the ospreys and tell them about conservation. And it's great to get them interested when they're young.
It certainly is. Get them young, get them involved.
Yeah.
And even more of that, if there's any teachers out there and you feel you'd like to bring your children down here, we've got all sorts of real fun activities as well. We've got nature trails, and we'll be building on that next year. So yeah, once again, please come on down and see what we're doing down here. And it's all free. But
Yes.
donations are always very much appreciated.
Donations are always welcome.
You can donate any way you like, online, well, whatever. We don't mind.
We've got the North Wales Wildlife Trust Osprey page where you can make a donation to this project. You can make donations to the North Wales Wildlife Trust in general as well. We're always, there's a few asks that we like to do from here. One is we're always looking for volunteers. So if anybody would like to get involved in the project, whether that's on site here at Llyn Brenig or as an online volunteer, just email myself. My contact details are on the Osprey page of the North Wales Wildlife Trust. Doesn't matter if you don't know a lot about ospreys, we can teach you that. All we ask is that you are happy to chat to the general public because we have a lot of visitors here, especially when there's a lot of drama.
We certainly do, but the birds are so engaging and endearing. And I know that I'm very biased, but I think that they are the most interesting and beautiful, handsome birds you could ever encounter. And I'm getting nods from all around the volunteers here. Beware, I always say when we're doing volunteer training sessions, we've gone blue again for some reason there.
It's because you keep putting your hand up.
All right, okay, and it's following my finger.
It's following you.
What was I going to say then? I always say, volunteers, beware, you will fall in love with these birds. And we all do, don't we?
We definitely do. Yes. How long have we got left? And have we got any more questions?
It's 25 past.
So we do get quite a lot of questions from our visitors. So Sophia, can you remember the most frequent questions that we get? Do you want to come sit down?
Come and sit down.
Yeah, Dave, come and sit
Come on.
down.
Yeah, come on. In fact, everybody,
Andy,
come around. Come on.
Yeah.
Let's have a big finale.
Alistair, come in.
Cue the epic music.
Apologies that we were a bit distracted then because we've been having some intruders this evening. So that was one reason why the microphones weren't switched off at the start because we were watching an intruder. And also, just as we were talking then, we had another intruder, didn't we?
Yeah. So it's continually happening. But before we go into our big finale, I'd like to thank Trish, who's not been on camera, our technical wizard. Yeah, big round of applause for her. Andy, who's over there with his iPad for some reason.
Can I just ask a question?
You
Yes.
Who owns the cameras and who owns the infrastructure on the nest?
Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water.
Own the lot.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
they pay for them as well, so they put a lot of money into this project. We do raise money and we do fundraise, and a lot of the fundraising money goes towards purchasing new cameras as well. So if the project has purchased them, then they belong to the project. If Welsh Water have purchased them, then they belong to Welsh Water.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question about who starts the nest off at the beginning of the year? Is that the birds or Welsh Water? Or
That's a good question.
That's a good question. Sophia, would you like to answer that one?
Well, over the winter, Welsh Water actually tidied up the nest. They took a bit off it because it was getting quite high because the birds had built it up over the last couple of years. But as 372 came in first, didn't she?
She did, yeah.
She didn't do much tidying up, but she 416 came in and did a bit of tidying up. But LJ2 is the nest builder. He is the ultimate.
He's a good man.
And he tidied up the nest, made the egg cup, and yeah, I mean it's still happening. So they're still adding to it daily.
And if you've never seen an osprey make a nest cup, it is one of the funniest things that you've
Great
ever
to
seen.
watch.
It really is brilliant, especially when they get blown over backwards and all sorts of things. So yeah, so nest building is it's quite an event.
And it keeps going throughout the season. Okay, it keeps going throughout the season as well. So at different stages of the chick's development, you'll see the nest evolving from a nest cup, from the nest cup that's dug out by LJ2 or the male at the start of the season, which then as the chicks get bigger and too big for the nest cup, that gets filled in, and the nest then starts to flatten out, ready for when they fledge. But as they're flattening it out, they're building the outside around, and they're building cot rails to stop the chicks falling out, because they do start to get a bit adventurous and start exploring their environment a little bit more.
There we go.
So,
And I
Thank
think
you,
we're coming
thank
up
you
to
for
our
that.
hour, aren't we now?
we're just 2 minutes
Are
left.
we,
Got 2
are we
minutes
going
left.
to talk a little about what might be in future Brenig Lives?
Yes. Yeah.
future Brenig Lives we're going to have, we're going to do these once a month. They're going to be, if we can cope.
Once every 6 weeks.
I can get some of the other volunteers.
Yeah. We're going to do this once a month. During the Osprey season, it will be Osprey updates, and we're going to also get involved with some other wildlife that is around Brenig, because we've got lots of trail cams out, we've got lots of footage. So we're going to tell you a lot about the other wildlife that's around Brenig. We're also going to get guests in, so it could be someone from the Wildlife Trust that wants to talk about their project. It could be someone from Welsh Water that wants to talk about their project, or it could be a guest speaker. So we've got 1 minute left. So as project officer, I would like to say thank you all for putting up with me and my mad ideas, and for experiencing a Brenig Live. We, the project, really appreciate all you lead volunteers and all our support volunteers and all our online volunteers, and all our supporters, friends of the Brenig Osprey Project, everybody that helps us, our visitors. We really appreciate you. Thanks to the people that are online that give me nudges when things are happening, so we can get Facebook posts out, so that's great. But I'd just like to say a big thank you to you all, because without you, the North Wales Wildlife Trust and Llyn Brenig Welsh Water wouldn't be able to do this without you.
And can I say thank you to you, Sarah, because without you, none of us would have been pushed into doing this in the first place.
Not sure that's a good thing.
Oh.
We'd like to thank you all for watching, and please be kind, because this is the first time we've done this. We know we've made some errors, but it's a learning curve, it's a learning experience. I hope we've had fun. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. So thank you for watching. How long have we got left?
Thank you.
See you next time. Bye, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
She's going out.
Bye.